Well, let's stay with this story. The economic freedom fighters are threatening legal action over reports that South Africa is planning to offer tech billionaire Elon Musk a special workaround to BEE laws. The party says the decision is unconstitutional and will compromise the country's sovereignty. Let's get some detail now on this, and we're joined by EFF spokesperson Snawo Tambo. Mr. Tambo, good evening to you, and thank you very much for your time. You ask a particular question in your statement, and that is that why is Elon Musk, who claims that there is a genocide in South Africa, why would he be so desperate to invest in a country such as that? Do you want to answer that question?
Greetings, Colin. Greetings to the viewers. I think it's up to him to answer, because he has been at the forefront of propagating the lie that there is a massacre and genocide of white people in South Africa in order to leverage preferential treatment and access to the South African market for his Starlink satellite company. So I think it is best placed for him to answer to us as to why is he so interested in running Starlink in a country that he says white people are experiencing a genocide in. Because if this deal that they are said to be making with Cyril Ramaphosa and the people who have gone there to negotiate with the Trump administration to sort of reset our relations passes through, one wonders whether Elon Musk is going to continue to propagate the lie that there's a white genocide in South Africa when his company is able to operate in South Africa. If he was a true humanitarian, if he was someone who was genuinely concerned about the well-being of Afrikaners in South Africa, he would be calling for sanctions on South Africa, he'd be calling for disinvestment in South Africa, but he's running a parallel campaign to install Starlink into a country that he claims is a genocide in. So it would be interesting to hear whether the negotiations in Washington will answer that question as well.
Yeah. You also say that Starlink would represent a threat to the local tech industry and national security. Just bring us into the picture here. How is it a threat to the local industry, but also importantly, and perhaps quite prominent, is this matter around it representing a threat to national security?
Look, I think the first part, Koli, as it speaks to local industries, speaks to the fact as to there's no indication as to how many jobs the Starlink enterprise would create in South Africa. And one knows that it would be operating remotely and based in the United States of America as part and parcel of the Silicon Valley conglomerate of tech giants that operate from the United States of America. So they would be operating from a satellite in the sky, running it from the United States of America, and undercutting the local telecommunications industry. So the EFF met with MTN, one of the telecommunicators here in South Africa as well, and they raised that concern with us. And that meeting spoke to many issues, such as our call for the ending of expiry of data as well. But one thing they raised sharply is that there would be a threat to jobs if there was an introduction of a remotely run Starlink satellite company in South Africa. And it's something that we must take into serious consideration, because American companies that come and set up in South Africa do not ordinarily create jobs. And there's no blueprint as to how Starlink would do that in South Africa. The second part, as it relates to national security, Elon Musk has been at the forefront of running a disinformation campaign that seeks to delegitimize South Africa's position of calling out Israel's genocide against the people of Palestine. So they want to say that we are committing a genocide so that our voice loses moral credibility to expose the genocide being perpetuated by Israel. So if someone of that stature, that nature, who's been conducting such activities, and even recently there was exposés by American media outlets that he has manipulated the artificial intelligence function called Grok on the X platform that he owns to perpetuate the lie that there is a white genocide in South Africa. So if he can do that to instill a campaign against our nation, how much more when he's going to have access to our data through a telecommunications company and control our telecommunications sphere through a satellite? So that poses a national security risk that must be averted.
Yeah. In America right now, the understanding is that a Chinese company which owns TikTok is being pressured to sell its American interests to a local company there. And in part, the question of national security is being put up as prominent. Why do you think that there is this double standard that in a country which says, like South Africa, which says there's got to be a local ownership of any international company that comes to set up shop here. And we've got to play by those rules. But in America, things have got to be different. Why do you think that this is the double standard that they want to impose on other countries?
I think it's the hypocrisy of imperialism, and I'm glad that you are able to raise that point even more sharply than I have in this interview. That they wanted to do that to TikTok, that they wanted to own a majority stake in TikTok because they suggested that TikTok poses a national security threat in terms of influencing the psychology of the American people and possibly lobbying them to believe in the ideals propagated by the Communist Party in China and the People's Republic of China. So their process to want to have that majority stake ownership in TikTok is exactly the same reasoning that we should use as to it relates to the Starlink company. Even in India, Starlink operates with a local stake ownership, and they've agreed to that. So it seems that this hypocrisy and double standard wants to be applied in South Africa and towards Africans, and it's something that we must reject in its entirety. We must protect local jobs in the telecommunications sphere in South Africa, but we must protect the integrity of our national security. And Elon Musk has represented himself as someone who poses a threat to the integrity of national security in South Africa. He has mobilized the American president, who he is dragging by the ear, to treat us like a persona non grata, to expel our diplomats, to declare genocide when none of that is perceivably recognizable, and for him to control the telecommunications infrastructure of our country when he's exhibited his displeasure with our nation and his ability and capacity to distort information to suit his own agenda is a risk we should not take. But one thing we should also notice that Starlink has not even applied for a license in South Africa yet. They just rejected ICASA's regulatory authority to impose that there must be a 30% local stake ownership. So it shows you the arrogance, it shows you the level of disrespect, and we expect Cyril Ramaphosa to be disrespected there in the United States of America, and his positivity is going to prove meaningless. And he must not use that visit to renegotiate local legislation of South Africa. He doesn't have the mandate to do so. He doesn't have the power to do so. So the assurances he's made to Starlink, the assurances he might be made relates to the NHI, to the Bella Act, to the Expropriation Act, are meaningless because he doesn't have the powers to do so. And we will take legal action if he reverses any laws at the behest of Donald Trump's administration.
I've got to put this to you, but I'm out of time. So very briefly, please. The president, speaking to journalists today in Washington, I'm talking about President Ramaphosa, he has given the assurance that he will not compromise South Africa in any way, shape or form. But as I speak to you now, we're running a breaking news that Elon Musk has once again repeated claims of racial exclusion. And this is on the back of reports suggesting that tonight, at that last-minute meeting, if indeed it does take place, there might be this compromise by South Africa, if you want to call it that, around Starlink.
Look, it shows you that Cyril Ramaphosa speaks with forked tongues. And Elon Musk is unfortunately correct if he thinks that his strategy of pushing propaganda of a white genocide in South Africa is working for him. It seems it is correct if the rumors of this backroom deal between the South African administration and Starlink are true. It shows you that Elon Musk thinks that his tactics are working and is doubling down on his tactics. And it should be a signal to Cyril Ramaphosa that he's being pulled by his nose and being manipulated, and that they are using manufacturing of information as it relates to genocide the same way they did with weapons of mass destruction in Iraq to leverage access to our markets through Starlink without complying with our local laws. So Elon Musk is applying the pressure because he thinks that it's working for him. And it's up to Cyril Ramaphosa to have the backbone to stand up to them. I don't think that the words that came out of his mouth